Welcome, miladies of inestimable value. The most dangerous woman is the one who doesn't need your approval to exist. Society thrives on predictability and compliance, and anyone who dares to step outside that carefully constructed box is instantly labeled a threat. Enter the Sigma female, a woman who couldn't care less about fitting in, playing nice, or stroking egos. She doesn't just break the rules, she writes her own playbook, and that terrifies people. Here's a fact to chew on. Research shows that people tend to distrust those who are too independent, as it challenges their sense of normalcy. Now take that distrust, sprinkle in a dash of envy, and you've got the recipe for why Sigma females are often hated. But let's be honest, most of this hate isn't about what they do, it's about what they don't do. They don't beg for attention, they don't tolerate nonsense, and they sure as hell don't apologize for being extraordinary. And let's face it, nothing drives people crazier than someone who thrives without their approval. Number one, they make individuality look dangerous. Society loves to throw around words like individuality and freedom. But let's not kid ourselves. Those are just marketing slogans. The truth is, the moment someone dares to live authentically, unapologetically, and without seeking permission, they're seen as dangerous. That's exactly what Sigma females do, and it shakes people to their core. They don't just talk about being different, they are different. They're the ones who walk into a room and make everyone question their own choices without even saying a word. It's not because they're trying to, it's because their existence alone is a defiance of the unspoken rules everyone else follows. When you're a Sigma female, you don't need a crowd to validate you, and this terrifies a society built on herd mentality. People cling to groups, trends, and labels because it makes them feel safe. But a Sigma female doesn't need that safety net. She thrives in her solitude, makes her own decisions, and doesn't ask for permission. This kind of radical independence, it's like a slap in the face to those who have spent their entire lives trying to blend in or please others. The hate often comes disguised as criticism. She's too cold, she's arrogant. She thinks she's better than everyone else. But deep down, it's envy. People see the kind of freedom a Sigma female has, and it forces them to confront how much of their own lives are dictated by fear of judgment. The irony? They don't even hate her for who she is. They hate her for what she represents, a reminder that you don't have to play by the rules to win. And for a society that thrives on control, there's nothing more dangerous than someone who refuses to be controlled. Number two, they reject the toxic feminine archetype. Sigma females refuse to conform to the outdated script society has written for women, the one where they are expected to smile on cue, act soft to avoid seeming intimidating, and constantly shape-shift to make others comfortable. They don't see femininity as a costume to be worn for approval. It's simply an extension of who they are, raw and unfiltered. Their elegance isn't manufactured, their intelligence isn't performative, and their authenticity isn't up for debate. This effortless confidence sends a clear message. They don't owe anyone an explanation for how they show up in the world. Society, however, thrives on women who play the pleasing game. From a young age, girls are taught to smooth out their edges. Don't be too opinionated, don't outshine anyone, and for the love of everything, don't make anyone uncomfortable. But Sigma females? They didn't get the memo, or they threw it in the trash. Their unapologetic refusal to conform unsettles people because it exposes how performative most interactions truly are. When they walk into a room, there's no softening themselves to fit in, no polite giggles to fill awkward silences. They're just themselves, and that alone feels revolutionary. For many, this authenticity is inspiring. For others, it's deeply threatening. People who rely on facades to navigate the world often find themselves unnerved by someone who doesn't play by those same rules. Sigma females don't weaponize their femininity or use it as a means to manipulate. They exist in a way that's free, grounded, and entirely their own. And for a society that thrives on packaging femininity into something digestible and safe, that's not just different, it's downright unsettling. Number three, they're not afraid to walk alone. Independence is one of those things people love to praise in theory, but when someone actually lives it, it becomes a problem. Sigma females don't just talk about independence, They embody it in ways that make people deeply uncomfortable. While society clings to the belief that everyone needs a tribe, a Sigma female confidently walks her own path, proving that survival, and even success, doesn't require constant validation or collective approval. She thrives in solitude, not because she's avoiding people, but because she simply doesn't need them to define her. This terrifies a world that equates belonging with security. Groupthink has always been society's safety net. It's easier to blend in, to be part of a pack, and to let the majority decide what's right or wrong. But when a Sigma female chooses to exist outside of that, it feels like a challenge to the system itself. It's not just that she walks alone, it's that she walks alone and succeeds. She doesn't crumble without the support of others, and this defies the narrative that independence is only possible up to a point. Her self-sufficiency often gets misinterpreted. Some label her as cold, distant, or even arrogant, simply because she doesn't crave connection in the same way others do. But the truth is, her independence isn't a rejection of people. It's an embrace of her own strength. She doesn't need constant companionship or external validation to feel whole, and that kind of confidence is rare enough to be unsettling. It's not that she doesn't value relationships, she just doesn't depend on them to shape her identity. And in a world that constantly pushes the idea of community as the ultimate goal, a Sigma female's refusal to conform is seen as both defiant and, let's be honest, a little threatening. Number 4, they don't worship authority. Sigma. Females couldn't care less about titles, ranks, or the so-called natural order of things. They don't automatically respect someone just because they have a fancy label slapped next to their name. Authority, for them, isn't earned through status. It's earned through competence, integrity, and merit. If you don't have those, they're not going to fake respect just to keep the peace. This mindset is a direct slap in the face to traditional hierarchies, where power often relies more on position than actual ability. This refusal to bow to authority shakes the very foundations of those fragile power structures. Traditionalists thrive on obedience, on everyone knowing their place and playing their part. But Sigma females, they operate outside the system entirely. They question rules that don't make sense, challenge leaders who don't deserve to lead, and refuse to follow just because that's how it's always been done. Their defiance isn't loud or dramatic, it's calm, calculated, and deeply unsettling for those who expect blind compliance. Their independence often makes them seem unmanageable. In workplaces, they won't brown-nose their way to the top, and in personal relationships, they won't cater to outdated gender roles just to make someone feel more important. To those clinging to authority for validation, a Sigma female's nonchalant attitude toward power feels like an attack. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake, it's a rejection of anything unearned. And here's the kicker, they don't fight the system with chaos. They simply outsmart it. This terrifies people in power because they can't control someone who doesn't care about their approval. A Sigma female doesn't challenge authority for fun. She does it because she's unwilling to settle for mediocrity disguised as leadership. Number 5, they play by their own rules. Sigma females don't just step outside the box. They torch it and rebuild something entirely their own. They reject the conventional roles society expects them to play, not out of rebellion, but because those roles simply don't align with who they are. This level of self-determination makes them unpredictable, and unpredictability is a language society doesn't know how to speak. People like rules because they create order. Sigma females, however, don't follow the rules, they write them. And that scares the life out of a system that depends on everyone playing nice and sticking to their assigned lanes. What makes them so disruptive isn't loud defiance or a desire to challenge authority. It's the quiet confidence of living authentically on their own terms. This terrifies people who rely on conformity to feel secure because it forces them to question their own choices. How do you control someone who doesn't want what you're selling? How do you manipulate someone who sees through the game and refuses to play it? You don't, and that's the problem. Society loves the idea of independence, but only within limits. When someone like a Sigma female embodies true independence, freedom from external validation, the courage to choose her own path, It's not just admired, it's feared. She exposes how fragile societal norms really are. People who spend their lives following the script feel threatened by someone who writes her own, and that discomfort often turns into resentment. But here's the beauty of it all. Sigma females aren't trying to provoke or unsettle anyone. They're just living life their way, and the ripple effect is purely incidental. It's not personal. It's revolutionary. And revolutions, no matter how quiet, always make people uneasy. Number 6. Their confidence isn't loud, it's deadly. Sigma females exude a kind of confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. They don't strut into a room, demanding attention or approval. They simply exist in a way that commands it. Their confidence isn't the loud, in-your-face kind. It's a silent, unshakable force that unnerves people because it doesn't rely on anyone else. They don't fish for compliments, boast about their achievements, or seek reassurance. They just know who they are, and that certainty is both rare and deeply unsettling. Most people are accustomed to equating confidence with showmanship, big gestures, bold claims, and a constant need to prove oneself. But Sigma females flip that script entirely. Their assurance comes from within, built on self-awareness and a strong sense of purpose. They don't need a crowd to validate their worth, which makes them immune to the usual tricks society uses to control people. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't care about your applause or criticism, and that kind of detachment makes others feel powerless. It's not arrogance. It's the absence of insecurity. And that absence creates a quiet authority that people find intimidating. Those who thrive on outward validation, whether it's through attention, praise, or status, often feel exposed in the presence of a Sigma female. Her calm self-assurance highlights their need for approval, and that mirror is hard to face. The irony? Her confidence isn't about making others feel small, it's about refusing to make herself smaller. She moves through life with a kind of grace that doesn't need a spotlight. And in doing so, she becomes the kind of person society can't ignore, even if it doesn't know how to handle her. It's not loud, but it's powerful enough to shake the foundations of how we define worth and strength. Number 7. They expose weakness by simply existing. A Sigma female doesn't need to say a word to make waves. Just by existing, she holds up a mirror that forces people to confront parts of themselves they'd rather avoid. Her confidence, independence, and enigmatic nature aren't just qualities. They're a quiet challenge to the status quo. People who've built their lives around seeking approval, blending in, or relying on others for direction can't help but feel a twinge of discomfort when she's around. It's not because she's trying to prove anything, it's simply because her presence highlights the cracks in their own foundations. In a society where so many mask their insecurities with bravado, groupthink, or performative confidence, the Sigma female stands as a stark contrast. She doesn't play by those rules, and that's exactly why she unsettles people. She doesn't need validation or a group to define her. Her independence is both a strength and a spotlight that reveals just how dependent others are on external sources for their sense of worth. This isn't about arrogance or superiority, it's about authenticity. A Sigma female's unapologetic way of being forces others to question their own choices. Why do they chase approval? Why do they settle for mediocrity? Why do they avoid stepping out of their comfort zones? For many, these are questions they've spent their lives avoiding. When faced with someone who isn't bound by the same insecurities, those unasked questions suddenly feel impossible to ignore. The unsettling truth is that people often dislike what makes them feel inadequate. A Sigma female doesn't provoke insecurity on purpose, but her very existence shines a light on it. And while some might find her inspiring, others resent the internal discomfort she stirs. After all, it's easier to blame the mirror than to confront what it reflects. Number 8, they don't need to be liked. Most people spend their lives chasing approval, adjusting their tone, softening their words, or forcing smiles just to be liked. Sigma females, they couldn't care less. Their self-worth isn't tied to how others perceive them, and that's a concept society struggles to grasp. When someone is perfectly okay with being misunderstood, it feels alien, almost unsettling. People often mistake this detachment for arrogance or coldness, but in reality, it's pure liberation. They don't need validation to feel whole, And that freedom makes others uncomfortable because it shines a light on how much they crave approval themselves. Sigma females aren't rude or dismissive. They simply value authenticity over acceptance. If someone likes them, great. If not, that's fine too. This mindset isn't about rebelling against social norms. It's about being so secure in who they are that external opinions lose their weight. And let's be real. In a world where so many bend and twist themselves into shapes that others find palatable, that kind of self-assurance feels like a rebellion. Their indifference to being liked flips the script on societal expectations. People are used to others vying for attention or approval, so when a Sigma female opts out of that dance, it feels disorienting. The truth is, their detachment isn't about superiority, it's about priorities. They'd rather invest their energy in things that matter to them than waste it worrying about public opinion. This refusal to perform for approval leaves people guessing and, frankly, uncomfortable. It's a silent declaration. I am enough with or without your endorsement. And while that's inspiring to some, it's threatening to others who can't imagine existing without the constant need to be liked. But for Sigma females, it's not a strategy. It's just who they are, unshakable, unapologetic, and free. Number 9, they don't over-explain themselves. Sigma females don't feel the need to justify their actions or explain every choice they make. And that can be downright unnerving for people who are used to a constant flow of justification. In a world where most people are trained to offer explanations, defend their decisions, or apologize for every little thing, a Sigma female's refusal to do so stands out. She doesn't offer up lengthy explanations to validate her actions, and for those around her, that silence can feel like an accusation or a challenge. Society has conditioned people to equate silence with guilt or unease, but for Sigma females, silence is simply a refusal to waste energy on something as trivial as defending their right to live life on their own terms. The truth is, they don't owe anyone an explanation. Their choices are their own, and the need to constantly justify them is seen as a waste of precious time. They know that people who truly understand them won't need an explanation, and the rest can stay confused. It's not about being evasive. It's about being so rooted in their own sense of self that they don't need others to approve or even understand their decisions. When someone tries to corner them into explaining themselves, it's not because they're hiding something. It's because they don't see the point in offering up their time and energy to please anyone else. This lack of over-explaining leaves many feeling uneasy because it forces them to confront their own need for external validation. People who feel compelled to explain themselves every time they make a choice often rely on that justification to maintain their sense of worth. Sigma females, however, don't need that. Their quiet confidence says everything without a single word, and that discomfort people feel. It's the realization that they've been wasting energy on unnecessary validation while someone else simply lives unapologetically. Instead. Number 10, they're impossible to predict. Sigma females have this uncanny ability to defy any attempt at categorization. In a world obsessed with labels, introvert, extrovert, leader, follower, they refuse to fit into any of these neat little boxes. Their behavior is not chaotic, but deliberately unpredictable. It's a calculated unpredictability that keeps everyone guessing, and that's exactly why it frustrates people. Society thrives on order, on knowing what to expect, on understanding someone based on pre-existing assumptions. But a Sigma female operates outside that predictable framework. She's not interested in conforming to any mold, and that makes her seem impossible to pin down. This unpredictability is often misinterpreted as randomness or instability, but for her, it's a powerful tool. She knows when to be silent, when to speak up, when to retreat, and when to engage, and she uses those choices to her advantage. The beauty of it is that people who are accustomed to seeing the world through a lens of categories and expectations simply can't handle it. They want her to play by the rules so they can understand her, so they can predict her next move. But she doesn't play that game. And when someone is so far beyond their comprehension, that's when discomfort sets in. The real power of a Sigma female's unpredictability is that it disrupts the need for control. People who thrive on control, who derive comfort from knowing exactly what's coming, find her maddening. It's not that she's trying to mess with them. It's that she doesn't care enough to follow the script they've written for her. She's not beholden to the expectations others have of her. And that's what makes her presence both magnetic and unsettling. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to be completely unpredictable in a world that demands to know every move in advance. In the end, Sigma females aren't just an anomaly in society. They're a bold testament to what it looks like to live unapologetically. Their very existence challenges the comfort zones of a world that thrives on conformity and loud validation. They don't play by the rules because they understand something most never will. True power lies in being authentic, independent, and utterly unbothered by society's expectations. They don't need to fit in, explain themselves, or seek permission. They simply exist. And in doing so, they expose the vulnerabilities and insecurities of a world too eager to live for approval. By rejecting the superficial constructs that bind so many, Sigma females embody a different kind of freedom, one that's rooted in strength, confidence, and a quiet determination to carve their own path. Their ability to walk alone, challenge authority, and achieve success without seeking applause isn't just impressive, it's revolutionary. It forces those around them to question the very nature of success, fulfillment, and self-worth. And while this may make some uncomfortable, it's precisely because the Sigma female reminds us of the one thing we all fear, that we too could live so boldly, so freely, if only we had the courage to do so. So next time you encounter a Sigma female, don't mistake her for someone who doesn't care. She's the one who knows exactly what she's doing, quietly proving that the most powerful force in the world isn't noise, but authenticity. And for that, society may just never be ready. If you've found yourself captivated by the strength and independence of the Sigma female, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us for more thought-provoking content. We're just getting started, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Also, as we step into the new year, I want to take a moment to wish each and every one of you a truly spectacular year ahead. May it be filled with growth, empowerment, and the courage to live unapologetically, just like the Sigma female. Happy New Year, and here's to a year of extraordinary possibilities. Thanks for watching, my ladies. See you in the next video. Bye for now, and God bless.